Hello, Milan. How's it going? I'm from Milan, so it's always been my dream to say that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is a fantastic location. And today I'm going to talk about the clearing layer. Is there a clicker, sir? Thank you. Next. GM. My name is Max. I am the ecosystem lead at Everclear. You might know Everclear as Connext. We did a recent rebrand in September this year. Before that, we were one of the top 5 bridges in the space. We reached 1 billion in TVL. And here is a little bit the story on what brought us to change, to launch a completely new product, and to really disrupt the bridging industry. I'm also a top 20 delegate at the Arbitrum DAO. We use the Shutter network, by the way, on Snapshot, so it's very cool to see other nice products being presented at ETHMilan. Today I want to mention 3 key concepts, so I would like you to remember these 3 key insights. One, what's the vision? Why we're building everything that we're building? And the vision is called a chain abstracted experience for users. Number 2, what is the current problem for this to enable that vision? And so why intents cannot currently scale? And number 3, what is our suggested solution for that? The clearing layer. Let's go. Starting point, I think we can all agree on this. We have hundreds of chains already being live, more than 50 rollups, more than 100 are already in the pipeline. It's extremely easy to spin up a new rollup. Welcome all. It's extremely easy to spin up a new rollup. So this fragmentation is going to get worse. And so the current experience for a user is extremely clunky. It's extremely full of friction, because when they identify a DApp that they want to interact with on another chain, they need to first understand that, well, they hold funds on a different place, so they maybe need to bridge to a new chain. And once they bridge, they find out they don't own the gas on the gas token on the destination chain, so they need to buy that gas token. And at that point, they can go back to the app and they can finally use it and deploy the funds, interact with the game, whatever they want to do. Imagine telling my mom, your grandma, like, that they have to bridge and change the RPCs in the wallet. It's not a feasible experience for the mainstream Web3. So the industry is kind of like converging into these intent-based architectures where we basically outsource the tasks, the complexities of Web3 to other entities, other agents. They might be called solvers, they might be called relayers, you name it. When the user has nothing to do, they express what they want to do. Hey, I want to deposit into Aave on Arbitrum, and I own funds on Base. And then they outsource this task to these agents who will do that for them in exchange for a commission, of course. But a user only pays if they actually get the results that they want. So if they want to do a swap, if they want to deposit on a lending protocol, they will only pay if the transaction is successful on the destination chain. And so this is where a lot of the bridges, particularly because the cross-chain experience is complex, so this is where a lot of the bridges today are leaning towards. The idea is really to enable a super one-click experience on whatever chain, whatever applications, so that you don't really have to think about what chains you own funds on. You don't have to think or know about what chain an app is deployed onto. It's all abstracted for you. So this is the chain abstracted vision. Let's have a quick look at how an intent-based bridge works today. There are plenty, you can name it. There is Across, there is a router protocol, there is signups, there's really a bunch of them that are popping out and they have already established a presence in Web3. So first of all, the user creates a new intent and says, hey, I have my funds here on this chain, on chain A. I want to go to Polygon and deposit my funds there instead in this lending protocol. And so it goes to the bridging protocol, an intent protocol, and says, hey, here's my intent. Please do it. Please execute it. At that point, the bridge, what it does, it creates an auction. So it says, hey, any solver that is around and is available and has funds, please execute this intent and you will earn some money. So all the solvers come around and say, hey, I am ready, I'm available, I have the funds, I'm the fastest one, I win the auction. So the winning solver that wins the auction executes immediately the transaction on the destination chain, on Polygon in our example, on behalf of the user, and then gives the money to the user. The money, the receipt, whatever they want to do. So the user is super happy. They've done whatever they want to do. The experience is seamless. We have achieved this fully abstracted vision, abstracted path. And so from a user perspective, that's the experience that we want to get. What happens afterwards, though? The solver at that point has fronted his own cash on the destination chain. And so it goes back to the bridge and tells them, hey, I've done what you want me to do. Here is the receipt. Now, please refund me and pay me as well. And so the intent-based protocol settles the funds of the solver back on the source chain. So where the users ultimately initially gave them the funds. The idea is that the solver can then rebalance their own funds to restart the operations again. And the solver is a much more sophisticated entity than the user. There is an issue, however. How do the solvers actually do that? Turns out it's not as simple as it is ideally pictured. First of all, rebalancing is actually complex, especially if you're looking at long-tail chains. All the solvers today, they either use market makers, so they basically outsource the rebalancing to someone else, or they even use centralized exchanges. So they bring their funds back to Binance, to Coinbase, and then they deposit on one chain and they withdraw on another chain. So ultimately, we are still using a lot the centralized infrastructure that we wanted to remove in the first place. This operation actually is also quite expensive. And so the solvers need to charge a higher price for the service because their cost basis is quite high. So as a result, also the user has a worse experience because they are charged a high cost for the cross-chain operation. It's not as seamless as it should be. So we're starting to scratch the surface of the problem here. These kind of intents cannot scale with how they're currently structured. As we were saying, because solvers need to rely on these market makers, they need to rely on centralized exchanges, they can only support a very small bunch of chains and a very small bunch of assets. Otherwise, their operation is not profitable. And as a result of this, only the biggest market makers today are able to operate profitably. So you can see the famous Wintermute is basically doing solving for every type of protocol, but it's just them. And then you can see among the top transactions, the ones that are filled are actually from the solvers of the same teams that run the different bridges. So what we want is an economy where solvers proliferate across any chain, across any assets, and that's where we can really get this chain abstracted and distributed vision. The other thing is, when a new chain comes up, we said it's very easy to spin a new one. They all try to compete to get a bridge to support them. They want to have this inflow and fast communication with the other chains, but only if very little sample of those, around 15%, is able to get the top bridges. Why? Because then all the bridges, they also need liquidity. They also need this arbitrager, so people that are able to rebalance them in order to support a new chain, which then in turn turns to the centralized exchanges, as we said. And centralized exchanges have the same problem. They cannot support any chain because they have the same issues of rebalancing. All right, let's jump into the solution. We came to this realization at the beginning of the year, and our aha moment was when we look at the data of the top chains and the volume, the flows across all the bridges, whether native or third-party bridges. We realized that during 24 hours, so during one single day, 80% of the flow can actually be netted out. What it means is that for every dollar that goes out of a chain, during 24 hours, every cent comes back in. 80 cents come back in, on average, of course. And so if there was, an entity that wasn't so constrained by speed, right? If they could wait a little bit longer in order to be rebalanced, we wouldn't have to actually move their funds independently, because your funds would naturally flow back at some point during the day. And so this is what we want to do. This is what we're doing. The idea is that when, if a user, right, has the urgency to complete their operations in the fastest way possible. So the user wants to go to another chain, they want an instant experience. But a solver doesn't have this strict requirement. They can wait a little bit longer if, in order to be rebalanced, they can drastically cut out the cost of their operations. So this is what Everclear does. We look at the coincidence of wants of all the solvers across the different chains. So if a solver needs to rebalance, so the solver has already executed their intent for a user. The user is happy already. The solver needs to rebalance their funds. And so they express an intention to rebalance the funds from chain A, let's say base, to chain B, Arbitrum, because they want to support the Arbitrum ecosystem. And then there is another solver that instead has his funds on Arbitrum and wants to be rebalanced on base. And so we match this coincidence of wants, which are not driven by extreme urgency, but rather by driving down the cost as much as possible, and we net them with each other. And so we can really cut the cost for this rebalancing operation, because if the tokens do not have to actually move, the cost can go down up to 10x. So let me introduce you the concept of clearing layers. Clearing layers are networks that coordinate the global netting of all the liquidity and capital flows between the different chains. We believe it's a new primitive. It sits next to the other modular components of a blockchain, the execution, the settlement, the consensus, data availability, and then there is clearing. And we do see it as a very, very collaborative layer with other pieces of the chain abstraction stack, other pieces of the modular blockchains, because we basically can help to support the solvers who in exchange support all the auction-based systems, like all the intent-based bridges, who can then support all the wallets, can then support all the permissions kind of applications. So this is how the full map of all the builders, all the protocols that are building for a chain abstract vision. And clearing is just that specific piece that helps to cut down the cost for solvers and bridges. As I said, it helps to reduce the cost for rebalancing up to 10x. It also enables to find programmatically the best strategy to rebalance the liquidity of those entities in a programmable way. So for every asset and every path, you can identify what's the cheapest way to do it. It might be netting with each other, as we said. It might be using the bridges that an asset, a token issuer created, like CCIP for Circle, for example. If you want to move USDC, it might take 20 minutes today, but a solver is not in an urgency. So you can help them to move their assets back to the chains where they want. And ultimately, it enables to expand to any chain in a very permissionless way. I won't deep dive into the architecture, but long story short, we have gateways on every single chain. These gateways can be deployed permissionlessly. The solver deposits the funds there and express what they want to do. I deposit my funds on base and I want to be rebalanced on this number of chains, not necessarily one. And then that invoice that is generated after the deposit is brought to the central hub, which is the Everclear rollup, by Hyperlane and secured by an AVS by EigenLayer. And at that point, on a central hub, we compute all these intentions from solvers, we see how to net them in the cheapest way, and then we send back the results to the different gateways, and then we distribute the tokens to the solvers, who are then rebalanced at a very cheap cost. The ultimate goal, again, is to abstract every chain, and we believe we start that by fixing the rebalancing problems for solvers. Cheap rebalancing means cheap prices for any cross-chain transaction, and ultimately the fully chain abstracted vision. As I was saying, this is a problem that involves many entities, whether centralized exchanges, arbitrageurs, market makers, solvers, bridges. They can all work together now because it's an open platform. And the more players come in, the more netting we can do. So the cheaper the price can get for everyone. That's why we see it as a very open and collaborative place. And this is live. We went live last week. So we're just starting to flow. The first bridges are starting to plug in. Router and signups are already launching. And many more are coming. So we're super excited about it. If you want to get involved, if you're a solver, if you're running a bridge, if you're running anything that needs to rebalance the liquidity at the cheapest price, even if not with the highest urgency, come and get in touch. My name is Max Lomo. These are our socials. This is a passport QR code if you are doing the checking in with the different talks, and it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.